So to my surprise, after publishing my video last week on Reincarnated as the 7th Prince, I discovered there was quite a bit of controversy. And not in the way that, like, normally when people say something's controversial, it's usually, like, pretty exaggerated. But honestly, like, I was surprised. Like, it wasn't just my comment section. Like, there was a lot of discussion about the design of the MC. And it's kind of one of those situations where it's like, once it's pointed out, it's hard to unsee it. Like, sometimes you just watch things and you just miss something that people see. And I kind of wish I did, because now it's like a frick, I can't unsee it. Like, in general, the overall design of the kid could be perceived as just a young boy. But it's true, they definitely focus on the thighs for shots for reasons. And that is the same reason they do it to all anime characters, whether it's boys or girls. The anime industry, it sexualizes everything because that is what sells. I do believe a large part of why this is causing controversy is because rather than it being on a female cast, it's now on a male main character. In general, I could do without it being on any of these shows. And I do think if I could change one thing about this, especially in this episode because now it's been pointed out, yeah, I would prefer us maybe not, like, having our boy flex his thighs or why is he stanced up like that. I do agree. But I don't think it ruins the show, because if it ruined this show, then I'm pretty sure it would have to ruin every anime pretty much out there, minus a select handful. Anime can be weird, it can be questionable, but the biggest thing that I praise from last week's episode is the fact that we have an MC who was reincarnated, not only into his own world again, which is something you don't see too often. Sure, there was, the 7th time loop, the villainess from last anime season, which did a similar concept, but you don't see it often. The biggest thing, though, was despite being surrounded by all these beauties, all these fan service-like objects that were trying to be all over him, our boy dipped to go play with magic. That was really respectful. So yes, maybe there's a handful of, like, why's my boy stanced up like that? I could do without this. But that's not his character. It's just bait because the anime industry baits you with every freaking anime out there because it sells to a certain target demographic, which helps promote media, merchandise, and everything like that. I don't think there's anything wrong with criticizing that stuff. Go ahead. But I've seen far worse. And I've seen people who have currently complained about this show praise shows in my other comment sections that are objectively more worse than this boy's short shorts and thigh shots. That's all I'm saying. We gotta just have a consistency with the criticism is all I'm basically saying. Now that it's been pointed out, I'm probably never gonna be able to unsee it, but despite some controversy about how is this show too bad, hell no, man. The magic system and the way they explore magic in this show is one of the best I've seen in recent memory. The dynamic between Grimm and Lloyd is top tier, and they added a third element, which was Lloyd being able to make bodies of himself, so Grimm can actually take over and use it while he's out and about being an adventurer. But most importantly, when they're both sleeping, as we see at the end of the episode, this thing can actually act by himself, and actually is the entire reason the kingdom isn't up in smoke, because Lloyd tried to cast a giant lightning spell in his sleep. There is actually a lot about this show that is so fresh and fun, and the dynamic that they have going on with the cast, the brother relationship, we get introduced to Tao, who is like basically if Milim was in Street Fighter. I really like this show. I do see where people are coming from, and I can overall agree, like, yeah, we could maybe pull his shorts down ever so slightly, and we maybe could just keep the camera up a little more, but in general, his actual character, his personality isn't sexualized, and that's the most important thing, at least for me. Of course, I have a full live reaction to this week's episode of Reincarnated as the 7th Prince over on my Patreon if you want to see my full cut thoughts to this or any of the episodes. It's going to be over there if you're interested. So, overall, better episode than the first, and the first was really cool. My favorite things about this show, I think if I was to chalk it up, is the personality of the prince just being so fascinated by magic and being just total chaos. He's freaky, man. Last episode was freaky, this episode more so. He blows a hole in the sky to the point that the galaxy is, he's like, oh shit, I can't let my big bro see this one. Just casually. In his sleep, he'll cast chanting magic that could blow apart the whole capital. The moon's even shaking in its boots. The kid's freaky, but the idea that he can just so casually say, hey, I'm gonna pull a parasite, make you into my talking hand, and now that I have 2 mouths, I can do a shit ton of spells back to back, and we're just gonna casually launch 100 spells at once. I can't do that. Okay, how about 2 advanced spells at once? And 2 advanced spells at once almost destroyed the whole sky and sent the galaxy tumbling towards Earth. Like, the kid is psycho. And I love the idea of having this demon who's just like, I doubt he's ever gonna change, and I think he's always gonna be like, hey, I'm gonna try to take over this kid. But as we see, as he's sitting in his chair being like, well, now I'm in charge, I can do what I want. As soon as Master phones you up and says, hey bro, he's like, yes daddy, what's going on? Yep, whatever you want. They're gonna be best friends. In a way, it kind of reminds me of, it's different, but like, there's a sort of dynamic in Ranking of Kings with the Centro 2 and how it starts off wanting to use the prince and then kind of becomes like they're actually best friends sort of a thing. And I kind of get the impression it's going to be similar in this show, except it's mostly going to be done by fear rather than, oh, this is just such a nice kid. It's like, no, I'm actually scared of the kid, and then I start to kind of bond with the kid sort of a thing. Either way, it's fantastic. I love the dynamic, and the more I see of the magic, the more interesting it is. Take a look at the dynamic with the brother, who is the second prince. Very interesting. Like, he can tell that his little bro is very talented. So what he ends up doing is when Lloyd comes up to do like target practice, he does this curve, right? And for the general folk, they're like, oh, look at this dumbass. Like, he's a little talented, but he's not anywhere close to our prince who's going to be king someday. And the brother's like, no, like, you don't understand. Like, by this time, like an hour later, he's probably already mastered the targets, not actually understanding how broken his brother is, but he still sees how strong and skilled his brother actually is, and as he says, could be like a grand mage someday, and for a future king that's going to be very valuable. But he also says it's because he just wants to have a good relationship with his brother. I'm like 90% sure that's true, but I am a little skeptical anytime when it comes to royalty if there is ulterior motives. Right now it seems like a genuine brother relationship, but even if it wasn't, Lloyd could kill anyone if he needed to. Like, there's nothing really to worry about. My favorite point though was actually introduction to this martial artist named Tao, who I don't think I've seen this before. I've seen plenty of anime characters punch or kick, and like you see, like whether it's their stomach that they hit, it goes, you know, it crushes it a bit and then they bounce out. This girl went inside, like without somehow rupturing the skin, forced it in, and only like a little bit of a hand was sticking out until she bounced out like a trampoline. Brutal. Savage, built different, and the fact that our boy can actually age himself up with an illusion spell. I actually like his adventurer persona with like the more teenage look. It actually looks pretty cool, and she's fallen in love. She's head over heels. She wants the master student romance plot line, and I'm like, oh, this is fantastic. I think between Lloyd, a little demon, and Tao, like those are three very fun characters. And the interesting thing is now that we have a way for him to leave the kingdom because we can have our demon control this body, hell, we could, in theory, just let the body do its thing if we really wanted to. In general, though, like, you know, this is a demon who wants to have his own body to do this or that, and he can almost have that prince-like role if he really wants it, while our boy's out doing adventuring, dungeons, and all this other stuff. I assume at some point Tao's gonna end up seeing a normal-looking Lloyd, whether that's actually him or, you know, his doppelganger, and we'll just have to pass it off as that's our little bro or something. But it's an interesting dynamic nonetheless. They actually end the episode on a pretty big cliffhanger. I did not think the credits were gonna play. So Lish pops up and basically, you know, our boy's just ready to throw hands. She looks like she's ready to run for the hills because she probably thinks she can't fight it. But in general, it was just such a fun dynamic across the board. Like, I definitely agree the character design could be a bit better when it comes to some of those shots and stances, but the actual exploration of the magic, the production, and the cast dynamic is so freaking fun. That's just me anyway. Let me know what you thought, because based on what I've been seeing, I think it's a very mixed bag on if people are going to keep on watching this one. So let me know what you're feeling down below. Leave a like if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new around here, and of course ring that bell so you get notified when I upload more. Like I mentioned, we got those full live reactions over on my Patreon, and hey, while you're over there, I'll also give you a video shout out. So today we got 0451 Jim, Mobita, Lexin13, Feather, The Lyrical G, and Andrew Stevens. So I appreciate the support, everyone. Please take care and have a good one.